You are listening to the Pursuit of Manliness podcast, where we are vigorously equipping men to pursue biblical manliness. For more information about the pursuit of manliness or find out about the herd, make sure you visit thepursuitofmanliness.com.
God, I thank you for these men. I thank you for the ability for us to connect in this fashion. And I know we're going to talk about a lot of things. Ultimately, we're talking about Jesus. And I pray above all, the guys that listen, the guys that are watching or whatever, that they would connect with him first and foremost. If we get that right, some of these other things will follow. And God, I pray for these men. I pray you bless them, their marriage, their influence, their church they're part of, and certainly this ministry of Winshape. It's much bigger than camp, but as we talk about the camp aspect, this might be foreign to a lot of guys, to the understanding of what could possibly happen, or maybe a misunderstanding of what it's really about. And I pray that it isn't just solely camp, but it gets into our houses, it gets to our address, it gets to our churches, and ultimately we get to be kingdom workers because of things like this. And I'm thankful that they are able to make time. I'm thankful for the gift of technology, and I'm thankful for the guys that are listening in their earbuds or in their break room or wherever they're at right now. God, just speak to their heart directly. And we're thankful for what's going to come of this. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, man, I got a herd of humans on here on this call right now. I got a Chris, a Steven, and a Speedy. And I asked Speedy why he didn't have a beard, and he played the Truett Cathy card. So we'll get that right out of the way. But guys, thank you for doing this. Would you just take a moment? I know there's three of you, and introduce yourselves, and then we'll dive into our conversation today.
For sure. My name is Stephen Moore. I serve as the director of Winshape Camps for Communities. Been in this role for a while and with Winshape since 2008. I'm very blessed to be here. Married and have three young kids. I have a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So I look tired this morning or sound tired. It's because I probably didn't sleep great last night. So, and to my right, we got Chris Witt.
Yeah, I'm Chris Witt, Senior Director of Camps at Winshape. Originally a Texas kid, did camping there for 23 years, worked in the church for the last 9 as executive pastor. I am a fighting Texas Aggie, and I still will say that even in the midst of this dumpster fire of a season. I have raised 2 boys. They are out of the oven. They are out and married, and actually just became a grandpa 4 weeks ago. So my job in essence is to support Steven and feed Speedy and get out of his way. So I turn it over to Speedy now.
Well, once again, I'm David Speedy Trejo. I have the privilege to be the Boys Camp Director. I would say I am the veteran of the group. I actually started with camp in 1985, the very first year we started camp when Truett cast the vision of starting a camp. We started a boys camp in 85, and then we started a girls camp in 87. Started as a junior counselor, became the boys camp director in 99. I'm married. My wife was a girls camp director for about 5 years as well. And then when we started having children, she decided she needed to stay home. And so I'm blessed with 2 children. I have a daughter that just graduated from the University of Georgia. And then I have a son that is actually a sophomore at the University of Georgia as well. We were blessed. They were both able to they work camp with me as well. And so it's pretty neat to see those my children grow up at camp and then become part of staff. And now, they're going to college, but they're still giving back to the community. And so, like I said, the veteran here, been doing camp for a long time. I love camp, and I love the impact it has on not only just on campers, but what it has on parents. And I was telling to Stephen and Chris the other day, this is the very first year that I had probably about 10 or 12 parents came up to me, and they kept on saying, "Hey, I remember you. You were my counselor back in the early 90s and stuff like that." And just, it's kind of funny that it shows how old I am, but what I love about it is the vision that Truett had back in 1985 is still the vision that we have in 2022, is still impact the lives with the message of Jesus Christ. So we do camper one by one. I love doing camp.
Well, as we said before we hit record, we love camp. My girls are now old enough that they work the summer camp here at the school church they're a part of. I was 25 years old before I went to camp, and I got there because I was a lifeguard. Pre-lifeguard, I didn't know how to swim, so I had to learn how to swim before I was a lifeguard. You should vet your lifeguards a lot better. But anyhow, I get there, and I thought, what on earth could you possibly do at a church camp or whatever? That was ours. Ours was a church camp. What could you? Is it like Sunday school, like outside? Like, I had no idea. And as I watched the different age groups come throughout the summer, I knew then, like, I'll never be the same because of that. And my wife and I are big believers in it. So what describe camp? So a guy that says, what is it? Do I got to go pitch a tent somewhere? Do I got to sing songs around a campfire? Like, why would a kid be interested in going to camp?
Yeah, I can kick that off. One, we think camp is just a lot of fun. I grew up going to camp, and when you go to camp, you just have fun in a way that often you might not have back home. But also at Winshape, we take the unique opportunity that we think through that fun, we have the opportunity to share Christ. And Speedy mentioned our mission statement: glorify God by creating experiences that transform campers and families with the message of Jesus Christ. So that experience of camp then gives us the opportunity to do that. And it looks different at Winshape. So we have 5 overnight camps in the North Georgia area. And so they might be pitching tents at boys camp or girls camp and going and camping in the woods. But then we do camp in Brazil and Costa Rica as well. We take teams down there. Down there, we really want to empower the locals to serve the campers and the kids in their community. So a lot of those kids don't even know what summer camp is, but they get an experience. So we get to go into the coffee communities where they're growing coffee beans and do camp for campers there, or campers in small cities around the capital of Brazil. So that's a really powerful ministry. And then specifically the division of Winshape I lead, Winshape Camps for Communities, we take camp on the road. So we know that parents might not feel comfortable sending their kid to an overnight camp. They might not be able to afford it. So we bring camp to them. And so we'll do this upcoming summer, Lord willing, about 90 different weeks of camp in communities all over America, from California to Texas to Illinois to South Florida and everywhere in between. And so we partner with local churches and we do a day camp. So about 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., parents bring their kid to camp. And it's more than just a daycare. It's more than just childcare. It's an opportunity for us to really have fun, but invest and pour into their kids and share Jesus with them in a top-notch way. And so that's what we aim to do through camp.
Yeah, Jared, I think when people my age and Speedy's age think about camp, they automatically jump to the Meatballs, Bill Murray Meatballs movie. And, while that has some funny moments in it, man, that ain't camp. A good camp is that as Stephen has described, can be done anywhere. Give me a rock and a stick and a godly college age role model. I can give you incredible experience. And it's good when it's fun, but it's fun on purpose, right? So Deuteronomy 6. These words I'm commanding you today to be on your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak them when you sit, when you walk, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands. Bind them on your forehead. So there's this intentionality in a day of camp. Everything has meaning. Everything has a purpose. Discipleship's not compartmentalized into a thing that happens in a class. It's shoulder to shoulder. It's out catching a frog with a kid and talking about creation, and it's a kid standing on a mountain and seeing an eagle in the wild, and God is speaking through nature in only the language that God commands, his natural creation. That does something to a child. But more than that, we're bringing to the table, again, that culturally relevant role model, that college student who's in between mom and dad and the kid, who is bearing out the veracity of the scripture day to day while eating corn dogs and jumping in the pool and flying off water blobs, having fun, getting down in the dirt and playing. But in that play, they're experiencing Jesus through that counselor. That is a powerful thing. I think Speedy can speak to that really well, what he sees in our boys' camps in particular.
Yeah, and I think, when we go to staff training, we get these college guys and we say, you're going to be the parent for these kids, whether for 5 days or 12 days, depending on what camp they decide to go to. And it's such power. That's for a college student to know that they're going to be that parent. But we get to do it in a setting what we call camp. And we get to, like Chris said, whether we're shooting bows and arrows, or we're riding horses, or we're kicking the ball. But the bottom line is, what we love about it is that there's going to be some time that we're going to spend one-on-one with a camper and just dive into what's going into their life and talk about how Christ is in our life. And they get to see everything that we do around camp, our theme, our curriculum, that it points back to biblical truth about a relationship with Jesus Christ. And we get to do that in the camp setting. And that's why I think it's so powerful for camp, because like Chris said, a lot of people think of camp, they think of all these other things. But what we challenge our staff members is say, you're going to get to spend that one-on-one time with those kids and dive into spiritually, how are they growing, or how's their walk look? So it's so powerful.
And I think one of the things that makes it powerful is that, I tell parents all the time, one of the most healthy things you can do for your child, statistics, research bears this out. One of the things that will cause a child to have a faith that lasts is that they have their own faith experiences outside of you. And so you're going to leave them somewhere on their own to experience a world on their own, to make their own decisions. That happens at day camp, but definitely an overnight camp. You're there managing the social network around you, having to build relationships and face challenges, jumping off of a tower connected to I just terrified every mom that was listening, but connected to very safe equipment by very well-trained, godly men and women, jumping off a tower, doing the thing you didn't know you could do. And in that moment of achievement, just going to bed at night, waking yourself up, packing your own bag, those small things at boys camp, learning to build your own fire, those tiny things combined with a conversation about God and who you are and who he is and who you're not and who you don't need to try to be. But that helps a kid become the full expression of who God created him to be. It's a combination of doing and hearing the word that you really have a hard time creating in a lot of other places.
So I feel like I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s. I said I didn't go to camp, but I went to sports camps and things. But one of the things you do is you get out of your normal routine. So for some parents and kids, leaving home and not sleeping in my bed and not having my stuff is hard. And I think it was more expected in the era that I grew up in, that camp was not abnormal. But today, I think it becomes even more essential because we're never disconnected from my kids are constantly connected to the kids at their school, the kid, whatever. So when they went to camp, while they still had their devices, that it was pretty much off, while they were there. And to see my kids now go out in public and see kids that were their campers and see their interaction. I mean, you talk about a proud dad moment, but I think there's this emotional bridge that a kid and a parent have to cross to get them to this experience, especially if you're sending them overnight or if you're sending them to a place that maybe is out of town or whatever. How do you help that? How do you get someone to say, I get it's hard that your kid's going to spend the night somewhere else or will not be responding to your text? Like, how do you help the parents go, it's worth it? It is absolutely worth it to send them to this.
I'll let either Speedy or Chris speak to the overnight aspect, but I'll tell a quick story about a Friday. We do Friday Family Fun Day. We were doing camp. There's 540 campers with the volunteers and the parents. I think there was nearly 1,500 people there, and in the auditorium hearing the gospel, about to go eat a lunch. And a dad pulled me aside and he said, I just want to thank you. And it was a really simple comment, what he told me, but it meant a ton to me. He said, we at home teach our kids these biblical truths. We try to reinforce them. We try to raise them in a godly way. And I kind of knew this dad. We work in the same office, and I knew that he was a biblically based man teaching his kids these. But he said something about camp. They hear it and they learn it in a different, impactful way. And it meant a ton to him. He said, you come alongside us and you reinforce what we teach at home, and our kids just get it. So thank you for the ministry you do. And that's awesome, because we're not trying to replace the parents. We're trying to come alongside them to help them in what they're teaching their kids at home. And so that was an awesome thing. But it was also a reminder to me is many of our kids don't have that dad or mom at home, and they aren't hearing those truths at home. So we have the opportunity, one, to reinforce what parents are teaching, but two, to also maybe introduce kids to Christ in a way that they've never heard it before. They go home and then they're telling their parents what they've learned. And those parents are saying, you know what? That's intriguing. I want to show up to church on Sunday morning and hear more about that. So either way, we love that we get to do that. I'll let either of these guys speak to the overnight aspect of it.
I think your question about parents, I think most parents understand there's a need to disconnect. There's a need to walk away from this thing. But it's hard to do because sometimes, man, this thing just feels like it saves your life, or the iPad or whatever. But I think parents understand it. I think there's a fear like there's never been about leaving and letting go of your kid, because let's face it, there's real predators out there. There's real dangers out there, and it feels scarier to let go of your kid, even though you need to do it. They need independence. It's hard. So one thing I think we would assure parents all the time, I wake up, and Speedy wakes up, and Stephen wakes up every day, thinking about how to protect the child, to give them that good experience. We spend our whole year studying, talking to those who have prosecuted predators. We understand the behaviors that come with that. We understand all the dangers that possibly could come at a kid. And when you're asking about a camp and where to go, you first want to ask them, what's the most important thing about your camp? And if they don't say safety first, go find another one. And so we spend a lot of time trying to create that safe world first. And part of that safe world, getting back to your question, is that we can disconnect to connect. So our counselors aren't even allowed to have their phones for the time that they're with us for the whole time during the week. We're practicing what we preach, and we're showing kids, turn off the noise, and God is speaking underneath that. And if you can do that here for a week, and we can show you how to have fun without it, this is something you can take back home and do for yourself. So we work hard to create a safe environment. That's not just physically, that's also emotionally and mentally. And that disconnection is a part of that. It's a healthy medicine for your child.
Yeah, and what Stephen said, I mean, we, working at overnight camp, I mean, parents come up to us, and it's parent after parent after parent is always saying, man, I am so glad how it has impacted my son's life. Because like Stephen said, a lot of times I hear this at home. You hear from your parents, but when they see a college student out there playing with them, running around with them, sometimes it's different hearing it from a college student. And so that parent comes up and says, man, y'all have invested in the college students. And then it's a ripple effect that now their kids they see what that is, a college student speaking biblical truth, just like my parents are. And that's so rewarding.
I will tell you, to be real, our college students that we're hiring now, when we first tell them we disconnect to connect, they're struggling with it. But what they find over the course of summer is how much control it's had over their life. And so the kids, they've been raised as kids with all of this stuff going on in their life. And so camp's teaching them first how important it is to be still, know that I am God, to take all the external voices out, and then that transfers down to the kids.
Yeah, I said I was never a kid that went to camp. So I was a man that went to camp, worked at a camp. That's creepy. So, but I'll tell you what, you're right. If you say, put the device away, you're mindful that you got a set of eyes that are watching you to see if you checked your phone, or if you're, talking about, we got caught watching the World Cup one time in the back during a worship service. And U.S. scored, and we went crazy, and the guys, he knew. So it's as transformational for the volunteers, the leaders, as it is. Now it's tiring, but I think what I hope parents understand, or these men are listening understand, is it's too easy not to do these things. It's too easy not to send your kid there, or say, we'll get you next summer, or whatever. I got a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, it goes so fast. And these summers are flying by. And now to see my girls working at camp who had attended camp, it's a special thing. And you're right, it supplements what you're hopefully doing at home. But doggone, there's a lot of people that don't have it at home. So I would say, if you know a kid, get them there, because it's too easy not to do it. It's too easy to fill your summer up with other things. And that's why we're having this conversation now, because like you guys, my summer's already getting booked long before it ever gets here. And so what are the first steps to figuring out, like, location, registration? Like, how I go, okay, I'm curious, I'm interested. Where do we go? What do we do?
Yeah, I'd say step one is just go to winshapecamps.org, and you can find out all that information. We have 5 overnight camps here in Georgia, and that ranges from completed first grade all the way through high school, completed 12th grade. So we have 2-week offerings where the campers come for 12 days, and then we have 1-week offerings where they come Sunday through a Friday. And then our day camps travel all over the U.S. So there's a chance we're going to bring a day camp to your community. And there's also other great camps across America. You might want your kid to have an overnight experience, and you might not be able to get them down to North Georgia. To Chris's point, look into other camps that are safe and biblically based, where your kid is going to learn and grow in their faith. And we would highly recommend that. But we are starting to have registration open. Our day camps will be registration will open early 2023. And this past summer, we had close to 30,000 campers come through our different programs. But we want to have even more next summer.
Yeah, and the heart of Truett was always, I mean, as Speedy knows it, but as being new to this organization, the heart of Truett Cathy and Jeanette Cathy is legitimate generosity, kingdom building. It is not about chicken. It's about that God giving that man the ability, after 40 some odd tries at starting restaurants, it didn't work, to figure out a way to make money. But then he gave that money to his people first, like he invested in them, and then he invested in the community around him. And that's the heart of Winshape, and that's transferred over. We also don't want finances to be a hurdle. So we have ways for people to come to camp. One of those is very simple. If it's your first time to ever go to overnight camp, we've got 5 in North Georgia. It's half price. No applications. It's just an automatic gift. Like, hey, it's only half price to come for that first year. So that's a pretty cool thing. But even if you can't afford that, we have other scholarship opportunities. I want to say too, parents get nervous about sending them away. There's also something called family camp. So this is a good step. Like the day camp's a great step. If you got one near you, that's easy. You can even volunteer and be there with your kids and have that experience. But family camp, we do those in North Georgia. We do weekends during the year up at our Mount Berry campus in Rome. Parent-child weekends, family weekends, whole family camps. Here's why that's powerful. Because all this stuff that you can't replicate in your home, you get to replicate with your family somewhere else. And you start a new rhythm of play and intentionality within that. We teach you how to do that. We train you how to do that. We don't tell you how to be a great parent. We help you actually be a great parent. Like for instance, one of my favorite things we've ever done. We have a father-daughter weekend. And back in the old days, I went and asked a ton of amazing godly women that we knew, leaders in the community. What is it that your father said to you growing up that you needed to hear? Or what did he not say that you needed to hear? And they gave us all this great data. And we compiled that into a document for them. And we have the dads, you're going to come to this father-daughter weekend. We want you to read through this. This is what the women you want your little girl to grow up to be have said they needed to hear from their father. You're going to write a letter to her, and we're going to help you do that. Using your own words, but saying these things in your own words to them. We're going to help you do that well. And while you're here, there's going to be a moment where it's called the walk to remember. And you're going to go on a walk with your daughter before the barn dance, the big hoedown thing that you're going to take her to that night. And you're going to find a spot and stop. You're going to talk to her about her life. How's she doing? What's going on with her? And you're going to stop and say, hey, I want you to know is it okay to cry on a man show?
As long as you do and I don't. Yeah, it's okay.
There you go. So I try to grow facial hair to combat that, but I cry at Coke commercials and football games. So I think it's okay. To say to her these things, he said, I want to tell you what I think about you, and to read that letter to her and hand it to her. And then we're going to take you to the barn dance that night. And I'm going to tell you something, man. Those dads, we're telling the girls at the same time, we kind of pull them aside and say, you know what? Your dad doesn't always know how to talk. Dads love you. They feel all this. They think you're beautiful and wonderful, and they want to say it to you, and they're feeling it. And it comes out like this. Hey, you want a hamburger? And he's saying he loves you, but we actually give them a chance then to have that conversation. That's what family camps can do for you. So I would encourage parents, go to an overnight camp if you can, go to day camp if you can, but family camp's also something you might consider doing, and we do those as well.
Yeah, what's the downside of that? I mean, is that, but I mean, we pay a ridiculous money to go on vacations, to get away, to whatever. And you talk about making a spiritual and relational investment whether it's a kid camp or family camp or father-daughter. I've never heard of father-daughter camp. I think it's fantastic. You talk about some nervous dads walking into that, and maybe some really uncomfortable moments as well, because maybe he's got a shoddy relationship with his daughter, and this might be, you don't get to decide how you're remembered. You do get to decide the effort that you exert, and that is a major effort moment for guys to go, well, we're going to jump out of the plane and see how this thing goes.
One of the things we'll do with the kids, we'll kind of separate the dads and the girls, or the fathers and the sons, or the mothers and daughters. And we kind of coach the kids too, to see their parents through the eyes of Christ, like to have grace for them. And one of the things we say to them right off the bat, hey, do you realize how much your parents love you? They literally sacrificed a whole weekend. Like they're communicating to you right now that there's nothing else in the world that matters but to bring you here. And if your dad isn't one to normally like to play and do silly things with you, he couldn't say it any more loud how much he loves you, because he's here to do silly things and play with you. So it can be powerful.
Do you know the retention rate? Like, how many people go to one and they come back to another? Any idea of what that looks like? Like, or is this hey, we saw him once and maybe we don't see him again? I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but do you guys have any idea how many people come back year after year?
Yeah, it varies. It varies by age. And so the younger they are, elementary age is a higher retention rate. So you might have as much as 60, 70% coming back. I think that the older you get, the more kids get a lot of other competing things going on. And so that retention rate goes down. In some of the younger ages, you can have as many as 80, 90% of them coming back. Family camps, you have families that'll do it every year, forever. It becomes a tradition. And then you'll have some that just do it one time and are gone. And that varies. I think day camps, you can speak to that, Stephen. That's a different animal too.
Yeah. And in our day camps, what we do is we go and we partner with local churches. What we realize is we, as Winshape Camps, we aren't the local church, but we love and support the local church. And we want local churches to connect well with their communities. We want businesses, we want families that are churched or unchurched to know, hey, here's an opportunity where I can send my kid, where they can be in a safe environment, where they can learn and grow. But then we don't want it to be about that 1 week. We want that to continue for the weeks to come. So one thing we require that church to provide volunteers that are going to be there at camp that week, because we know on Friday we're going to pack up our truck and we're going to go to the next location. We want to build relationships with those campers, but we want to set up those volunteers that live in that community to really set up and build those relationships so that those can continue the other 51 weeks out of the year. And we know that's impactful. We send out surveys to all our parents, and we continually are really blessed to see how much our parents appreciate camp. But I just pulled it up when you asked that question. One of the questions is, what's your return intent next year? And 80% of our parents said they definitely will return. There's even a question that's lower that's probably will return that I don't have pulled up, but 80% said they definitely will return next year. So maybe that gives a very clear answer to that. And we know things come up. They might age out of our program. They might move to a new location. But we're very encouraged to see our campers come back year over year, because we want to build on that. And then, Lord willing, we'd love for them to come serve with us as summer staff. We hire 800 to 900 college students each year, where we really get to pour in to them and invest in them too. And I love to hear them say it was one of the hardest summers of my life, but one of the best summers of my life. And that was my experience. And it was hard because, hey, you're in the trenches. You're in there. You're sharing Christ. You're waking up early. You're going to bed late. You're helping care for a 7-year-old boy or 14-year-old or whatever it may be. And that can be challenging, but it can be so rewarding to give up of yourself, don't go home and play video games or whatever. No, I'm going to be out there sharing Christ and serving. And I think people grow a lot in that type of setting. So
I will say that, and this is a shameless. I'm asking parents to do something I know works from experience. The longer a kid goes to camp, the more powerful the camp experience becomes. We don't make money at Winshape. One thing about Winshape is we lose money on everything we do. Like through the generosity of Truett and Jeanette Cathy, like we're supported in a way that we can keep our costs down and provide an excellent experience. And we don't make money on anything. So it's not about that. It's really the power of years stacked upon stacked upon stacked upon, seeing Speedy over and over again, coming back to that same place, memory built upon memory. But as they grow up too, and they move into that staffing position eventually, that has power as well. So my boys both grew up going from camp from kindergarten through 12th grade, just like Speedy's. And then my youngest son, well, both of them worked camp all throughout college. My youngest son is now out in the world, just newly married, living in Charleston, South Carolina. And he is working for a company. I won't mention the name, but he's working in safety and standards in this company. He's right out of college. And he's already been, he got the first job, and in the interview, they asked him to go ahead and interview for a manager job. And then he got the manager job. And within a few months, they've now got him training the others. And he's going, Dad, I'm right out of college. Why am I? And I'm like, it's because you've worked in these really healthy environments your whole life. And so you've seen what a healthy work environment looks like. You've earned skills going to camp all these years that are transferable. I've been telling you this your whole life. They're transferable to the workplace. They're good for industry. And so you've been trained. I know it sounds like camp, but you're able to communicate what camp has done for you. And as a guy who hires people, you're the kind of person we want. And so camp does build over time. If you ever meet a kid that's gone to camp their whole life at a great camp, you interview them, because there's a good chance, especially if they work there for multiple years, they're one of the best you can have. And I'll tell you right now, if you ever meet a Winshape Camps day camp director who takes these teams out all over the country, hire that person, because they're some of the most well-developed people I've ever met in my life.
So I know go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, how's that for a commercial for hiring Winshape people?
Be careful. Now they're all okay. LinkedIn's going to blow up right now. Everyone's looking for Winshapers. I know you guys do more than camp. I'm an advocate for camp. I think there's a lot of powerful moments that can happen there. So as we begin to wrap up this portion, what else does Winshape do besides the camp aspect?
Yeah, Speedy mentioned Truett started Winshape in 1985, and it started from the get-go as a way to develop college students. And so that was kind of the first thing in Winshape College program to shape winners. But it's kind of evolved into 5 core ministries that provide transformational, biblically rooted experiences to bring campers, families, individuals closer to Christ. So those 5 ministries focus on camp activities, which is camp, foster care, that's our Winshape Homes program, professional development through Winshape Teams, and then we have Winshape College program, which is our college student discipleship, and then we have marriage enrichment through Winshape Marriage. So those are the 5 kind of core ministries of the Winshape Foundation.
Very cool. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys being on here. I'm thankful for what you're doing. I'm thankful for the 3 of you being in the same room together. We'll put the links in the show notes for the guys that want to find out more information. Is there anything else we need to know before we wrap up here?
Hey, get outside, play with your kids, get them to camp, shut this thing down, and put them in front of God's creation and let them speak, man. That's, at the end of the day, that's our heartbeat in all this. So,
amen. Well, Chris, Stephen, Speedy, appreciate you guys being on here. Again, the links are in there for you guys in the herd. We'll continue the conversation over there.
Thank you, men, for listening to or watching the Pursuit of Manliness podcast. If you're looking for any of the links mentioned in today's podcast episode, make sure you check out the show notes. You will find them there. If you will, leave a 5-star review on iTunes. That just continues to help get the word out about the Pursuit of Manliness podcast. Men, if you are in the herd, we are going to continue our conversation over there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Let's keep pursuing biblical manliness.